Hey guys, today we have another plant revival. Today we are reviving a Philodendron Selloum. I'll put its different names here. Bipinnatifolium, something like that. Bipinnatifidum, something like that. But this little baby, as you can see, looks pretty awful. The last plant that we did was a variegated Maranta. It was already pretty much revived. It just needed to be spruced up a bit. And this plant is in the same boat. It has already been revived. It just needs to be spruced up. So this plant is in the condition that it is. Also because of underwatering. I had this plant outside and it was getting too much sun and it wasn't getting watered enough. So you can see these leaves, they kind of have these like little splotches on them. If you can see, they look like they're ripped in the center. That is from too much sunlight. Pretty much all of the leaves have that. So that is from too much sunlight. And you can see these dead older leaves are from underwatering. So when you underwater consistently, like I have been doing for this plant, the older leaves will turn yellow and crumple up and die like they are doing here. And like I said, the little holes and everything are from too much sunlight. So those are two things that led to this plant's demise. But now we're gonna fix it up and we're gonna make it look beautiful again because this really is a beautiful plant. Also, I want to point out, if you want to purchase this plant, if you're looking for it, or if you like how it looks and you want to buy one, or if you see one in store and you're like, well, I want to get that, they do sell them at Home Depot and Lowe's. And this one I think I did get from either Home Depot or Lowe's. This was $7.98. Of course, the plant was smaller when I bought it, but it was still a pretty large plant. Often when I go to garden centers, I will notice they have some Selloums indoors and they also have them outdoors. And usually the Selloums that are inside are in smaller pots, but they're more expensive. Or they're in the same size pots as the ones outside and they're also more expensive. So be sure to check outside because this is more of an outdoors plant. Like it's more commonly an outdoors plant, at least where I am in Southern California. So definitely check that out because you can probably find a much cheaper one and it could be a lot bigger too. But other than that, we're gonna get into cleaning this baby up. First things first for this guy, we're gonna take off the yellowing and poor little sunburned leaves. For philodendrons like this one, it's very easy to just rip off the leaves from the base. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Of course, be gentle and careful just in case the leaf is not dead enough to come off easily because then you might rip your plant. So far they're coming off pretty easily though. And this one is having a harder time, so I'm gonna have to cut it and try to cut as close to the base as possible. So you can see definitely a sunburned leaf. So they can have some direct sunlight. Like these plants can take a lot of sunlight. If it was a different houseplant that I had out there, it would have definitely burned completely. Of course, you don't have to take off every leaf just because it's ugly, but right now I'm trying to make this plant look like it's thriving, so I'm gonna trim it back quite a bit. So this looks so much better, even though you can definitely see the sunburn on here, but it looks a lot better. There's a bunch of leaves and stuff in here, so we're gonna take care of that in a moment. But this is the pot that I am upgrading to. It is a 3-gallon pot, if that means anything to you. But this is the perfect size, bigger. We don't want to go too big, and it definitely needs to be sized up because there are roots coming out. I also have a really pretty pot. It's a think it's a concrete pot. It does have a drainage hole, but it's a really heavy pot, and in case I want to switch out whatever plant I put in that pot, because like I said, it's a very pretty pot, I'm just going to put it in a nursery pot and use that as a cash pot. I have this soil mix. This is all pre-made soil. This is all the Fox Farm Ocean Forest soil, and as you can see, I do have a lot of it here, but I'm going to add some of this. I've been trying this out recently. I barely started using it, but this is cocoa core chunks mixed with coconut fiber. So we're gonna add that in there. So far, I really like using it. It's good for plants that need a lot of drainage. And honestly, I'm just adding it here for fun. I wouldn't normally do this, but I just had it, so I was like, oh, I'll just throw it in there. So I'm gonna add that in. I'm also gonna be adding orchid bark. This is a medium size. This is a big size that I don't usually use. For smaller plants, I'll usually use smaller size orchid bark, of course, but this is the medium and it's going to be really chunky. And since this is a philodendron, it does like to climb, so the roots like to grab on to bark, you know, they grab onto trees. So orchid bark is really good for that. And I'm just gonna add a little bit, not too much. And also just some charcoal for extra drainage. Just a bit of that as well. And now I'm gonna have to try and mix this up in such a small container. I'm probably just gonna do this. Oh geez. I'm gonna mix it inside the pot it's going in because that's gonna be much, much easier. We can get this guy out of here. This very root bound feller. Here are all the roots, so you can very much see this poor little fella is root bound, and this is very heavy. I'm gonna hose this down to get as much of this old soil out as possible so I can give it some fresh new soil that isn't so compact, and then we can put it into its new pot. Now it's ready to be potted up. You can see on the roots, some of these roots are dead, or there's a little bit of kind of rot in here, and I'm not gonna try and cut it off or anything. There is so much healthy growth here that that's not even a problem. I feel like this rot is very old too, since you can see it's so kind of like just dried up. So I'm definitely not worried about that at all. And these plants are very, very hardy. So you don't need to be too concerned with rot or anything like that, as long as you give it a really good chunky mix. The mix it was in had so much orchid bark in it, or I don't think it was orchid bark, but it had so much bark in it. So you can definitely see that they like it to be, they like a lot of aeration. They like the water to drain out very quickly. Boop. Oh. There we go. Make sure it's centered. It looks so good. So I'm doing it on the floor because it's much easier for me to see what's going on. Okay, here we go. So I did add a layer of just the potting mix on top because when I water it, this soil is gonna be the one to fall through the cracks while all of the orchid bark and everything is gonna stay in place. So this is just gonna fill the cracks, and you'll see once I water it that all the orchid bark somehow makes its way to the surface again. So I am going to water it and then we will be done. And I'm a little bit upset because I didn't center it perfectly, but that's okay. Okay, here is the final product. Well, you get it. I'm gonna take it out of this, the cash book's gonna live in. This is the final product. It looks so much better than it did before, and I'm very excited. It's gonna take off now that it has space to spread out its roots. I'm gonna be watering it more frequently to keep up the good growth it's got going on. And I can say this plant has officially been revived. So it's definitely gonna grow so much better, and it's gonna really appreciate this new pot and everything. Hello, it has been quite some time since, you know, I helped my poor little baby come back to life, and it's time for an update. Sorry if you can hear the fan going, but it's very hot, and also sorry about the lighting. So my plant's over here, right there, if you can see it, my little Selloum, and I was originally planning on putting it back outside when, like, so that it can continue growing really quickly. Let's go over there so you can see it. So this is where it has been living, and you can see there are a bunch new leaves. I'm gonna pull it out so we can see it better in a moment, but I just want you to know the light it's been getting. And it is next to my grow lights, so it's not been getting a lot of light. And if you remember me saying earlier, this used to live where it was getting literally sunburned. There's still some traces of that sunburn on here. So you can see the difference between a healthy leaf and a sunburned leaf here. And so it's, like I said, it went from getting a ton of light to not that much light at all. So it hasn't been growing as quickly as it would have if I put it back outside just in a shadier spot, because this is like what I would call a low light area, but it's been doing pretty well here. So I'm gonna bring it out so we can see it in better, you know, so it's not all clustered here. Here it is. It looks so much better. It has had a ton of new growth even though it hasn't had a lot of light. I haven't had to water it as often, like I keep saying over and over again. I was planning on putting it outside, and if I did put it outside, I would need to water it very often. It has been in the hundreds. It's been pretty hot in Southern California, as in a lot of places, so the soil would have been drying out a lot quicker. But since it's getting low light, it's not really using the water as quickly, so I haven't really had to water it that often. I've maybe watered it like 4 times, honestly. So yeah, not having to water, it's been like so much easier for me. And I have started to fertilize it. I was really lacking on my fertilizer game, honestly. But I started fertilizing my plants again. This is what I've been using. And so far I really like it. I don't have any leaves that are discolored or like yellowish looking. So everything looks very healthy, very good. And she's looking so great. Everything is though leaning to the side, and that used to bother me in plants. Like I would try to kind of like rotate them so that they would be even around. If you remember, this plant was even, it was like standing up straight, but there have been too many times where I've tried to even out a plant by spinning it, and then like it just doesn't look as good because the foliage is not all on one side, making it look really full and bushy. So I've stopped trying to even out my plants, and when they're leaning, I'm like, yeah, you look gorgeous leaning. So I'm just gonna let this plant lean. I'm probably gonna keep it there. I think it's been a good spot. Like, it's been doing great. You can literally tell what growth has come out since it's been put there. So that's how I know it's doing well. But that is it for the video. I hope you liked it because this was definitely quite a transformation. It's kind of amazing what giving a little bit of attention to your plant can do versus ignoring it all the time. And also a good repotting, because it really needed a repotting. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!